Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so today we're doing a really focused look, a deep dive, into these sources you shared, excerpts from the Quran, specifically the Clear Qur'an English translation. Our goal here is to really pull out the foundational ideas, what's the core theology, what's the historical story being told, and what's the ethical guidance in there. And just looking through the structure is fascinating. You've got 114 chapters, these surahs. Starts with the opening, ends with mankind. Pretty standard, maybe. But then you hit titles like the heifer or the spider, even the poets. It really signals a huge range of topics, doesn't it? From law to stories, warnings. It's a lot.
It absolutely does. And I think for anyone coming to this, maybe as a learner, it's helpful to group it around sort of the big pillars. So that's what we'll try to do. Focus on, first, the absolute bedrock, God's oneness, his sovereignty. Then look at the chain of prophets, the history. And finally, the sort of blueprint for living, the ethics.
Okay, perfect. Let's dive into that first pillar then, the theology. When you sit through all these passages, what's the single most central repeated message about God?
Well, it's unequivocal. It's absolute monotheism, pure and simple. You see it right away, like in the line, your God is one God. There is no God but he, the benevolent, the compassionate. And it's not just saying God exists as one, it's describing a kind of absolute self-sufficiency.
Self-sufficiency. How does the text describe that? You mentioned some active descriptions.
Yeah, very vivid. He's called the living, the everlasting. And this one's powerful. Neither slumber overtakes him, nor sleep. That's key, you see. It sets God apart as completely independent from creation. He sustains everything, but needs nothing himself. No rest, no fatigue. And this idea is really crystallized in one short chapter, Surah 112. It's like the ultimate statement of this unity. He is Allah, the One, Allah, the Absolute. He begets not, nor was he begotten, and there is nothing comparable to him.
Wow. Okay, so if that's the definition, unique, incomparable, absolute, what happens if someone challenges that? What's the consequence?
That takes us straight to the concept of shirk. Probably the most critical idea to grasp here. It literally means partnership. And shirk is presented as the one sort of unforgivable mistake, associating partners with God, whether in worship or giving something else his authority or his attributes.
So it's broader than just like worshiping an idol. It could be elevating anything created, a person, an idea, maybe even your own desires to God's level.
Precisely. Anything that infringes on that absolute sovereignty laid out in Surah 112, it's a direct violation. And the text is very clear about the danger. It warns that, Satan's influence, his authority, it's only really effective over those who choose to follow him, and specifically those who associate others with him. It draws a very sharp line.
That idea of sovereignty, it links so clearly to how the text talks about the universe itself, doesn't it? Like the cosmos is proof of this power. It says Allah created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then settled over the throne.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how it uses the natural world, things you can see every day, as constant evidence. Creation isn't just a past event, it's ongoing. It's full of signs for people who understand. Things like night and day switching over, ships sailing predictable routes, the whole cycle of rain bringing dead land back to life. These aren't random. They're presented as signs of that divine order.
Okay, so the universe has this clear design. What about the humans in it? This is where, for me, it gets really interesting, this idea of a long chain of messengers all bringing the same basic message, starting right at the beginning with Adam.
Yes, the Adam story is foundational. It sets up humanity's role. God tells the angels he's putting a successor on earth.
Yeah.
And crucially, God taught Adam the names of everything. This suggests, a capacity for knowledge, for intellect given by God. The angels bow, showing respect, but Satan refuses out of arrogance.
Yeah, which immediately introduces that core tension, right? We're given intellect, responsibility, but we're also prone to making mistakes.
Exactly. And the mistake happens almost right away. Satan tempts Adam and his wife, and they slip up, they leave the garden. But importantly, the story doesn't end with the failure. It emphasizes that the core message, worship one God, live ethically, was sent again and again through history.
Let's unpack that continuity. The text says it confirms what came before it. What does that actually mean, especially regarding older scriptures?
That's a really vital point for anyone trying to understand the perspective here. When it says it confirms what came before, it means it validates the essential truth that all prophets brought, worship the one God. So by naming figures like Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, John, Jesus, and others, it's weaving them into a single unified religious narrative. They all taught the same core thing.
Okay, so it sees them all as part of the same tradition.
Yes, but with a specific role for this final message. The idea of confirming also implies completing and perhaps correcting or clarifying. It positions itself as the final, perfectly preserved, universal version of that internal guidance. Whereas earlier revelations, like the Torah and Gospel, which are also mentioned by name, are seen as perhaps becoming specific to certain communities or altered over time by human hands. This is presented as the definitive statement.
And the focus on Jesus, the son of Mary, it's quite detailed in these excerpts. He's not just another prophet in the list. There's a lot about his miracles.
Oh, absolutely. His unique status is emphasized right from the start, with Mary being chosen and purified. The angels announce him as the Messiah, Jesus, who'll speak even as a baby in the cradle. And the miracles are significant, making a bird from clay and breathing life into it, healing the blind, the lepers, even raising the dead. Really profound acts.
But there's a crucial qualifier added each time, isn't there?
Yes, and it's critical. Every single miracle is followed by the phrase, by Allah's leave, or by God's permission. This loops right back to that absolute monotheism we started with. Jesus is shown as incredibly powerful, a major sign, yes, but his power comes entirely from God. He's a messenger acting on the Creator's will, not a partner in divinity.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
So we have the core theology of one God and this long history of prophets confirming that message. Now, how does this translate into, well, daily life? What's the practical guidance, the ethical roadmap?
Well, the text defines righteousness very broadly. It's not just about rituals. Surah 2 says something like, righteousness isn't just turning your face east or west, but true righteousness is believing in Allah, the last day, the angels, the scriptures, the prophets. And then it immediately links that belief to actions. Giving wealth away, even when you love it, to relatives, orphans, the needy, freeing captives, praying, giving charity, keeping promises, being patient in hardship. So is faith and action woven tightly together?
Let's break down some of those actions. There are specific duties mentioned quite often.
Yes, definitely. Performing the prayers is central. And then there's regular charity, the zakat. And zakat is interesting. It's framed not just as being nice, but as a formal obligation, a kind of wealth purification tax almost. It's built into the system to ensure wealth circulates and doesn't just pool with the few. It tackles economic justice head on.
That focus on economic fairness,
Yeah.
it seems to run through a lot of the guidance, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental. You see direct prohibitions against things like usury, charging excessive interest, and strong commands about fairness in business dealings. Give full measure and full weight in all fairness. The responsibility for a just society seems to fall on every individual's transactions.
Now, I wanted to touch on something that often comes up. Religious freedom. There's that very direct statement. There shall be no compulsion in religion. The right way has become distinct from the wrong way. How does that fit in?
That's the stated principle. It asserts that genuine faith has to come from personal conviction, not force. The path is shown, the text argues, but choosing to walk it is up to the individual.
But that raises a question, doesn't it? If the path is clear and you can't force anyone, how does the text handle accountability versus this freedom?
It seems to lean heavily on human reason and observation. The guidance is considered clear because the signs of God in creation in the prophetic history are supposedly obvious if you use your intellect. The text often uses contrasts like the blind and the seeing. People who ignore the evidence, despite it being all around them, are described pretty starkly. There's a parable comparing them to animals that hear only shouts and calls, concluding they are deaf, dumb, and blind. They do not understand. So the freedom to choose is real, but it comes with a heavy responsibility to actually think and use the intellect God gave you.
Right, okay. Let's shift focus to the end game then. If the path is clear, what are the ultimate stakes? What happens to those who follow the guidance versus those who reject it? What's the final reckoning?
The belief in a day of resurrection, a final judgment, is absolutely central. It acts as the ultimate accountability. For those who consciously reject the message and oppress others, the descriptions of hell are, well, severe. Torment that doesn't ease up, no second chances. And there's a specific chilling mention that hypocrites, people who pretend faith but work against it, will be in the very lowest level of the fire.
And the flip side, for those who believe and act on that belief.
The reward is painted in terms of ultimate peace and fulfillment. Gardens beneath which rivers flow, eternal life, pure spouses, a state of complete contentment. But getting there isn't automatic. It's explicitly linked to perseverance, to patience through difficulty, keeping your word, doing good deeds consistently. It's something earned through how you live.
This idea of a final absolute judgment really underscores the sheer scale of God's knowledge and power, doesn't it? It feels almost overwhelming to contemplate.
It is, and the text itself uses a really powerful image to convey just how vast God's knowledge, his words are. It says, basically, if the entire ocean were ink to write down God's words, the ocean would run out before the words did. Even if you brought another ocean just like it for more ink, it's an analogy that instantly frames all human knowledge, all our discoveries, as just dipping a toe into an infinite reality. Puts things in perspective.
So we've covered quite a journey here, from that absolute bedrock of God's unique oneness and control over everything,
Yeah.
through the chain of prophets bringing that same message, down to the practical ethics of justice, charity, patience,
Yeah.
and ending with this ultimate accountability and reward.
And if you pull back and look at that whole picture, it leads to a really interesting closing thought, especially for you, the listener, exploring this. The sources say that humanity started as one community, but then differences and disputes arose. This guidance we've been discussing was meant to be unifying, right? Yet later passages acknowledge that people tore themselves into sects, each party happy with what they have. So the question becomes, when you encounter this account, a message intended as universal guidance, followed by historical division, how do you personally think about navigating those divisions and disputes that came after? How do you approach differences when the origin claims unity?
That's definitely something to reflect on. A challenging question to end with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material.